My family didn't just stop supporting me, they threw me out of the house the same week I lost my job. No warning. No second chances. Just a suitcase, a slammed door, and silence. I was Emily Carter, a marketing manager with a solid career, until one meeting erased everything. I thought losing my job was the worst thing that could happen. I was wrong. Because when I walked back into that house, hoping for comfort, I found judgment, cold eyes, calculations. My value dropped the moment my paycheck disappeared. And 2 weeks later, I was on the street, sleeping in cheap motels, eating whatever I could afford, questioning everything, my worth, my choices, even myself. They said I wasn't good enough. I almost believed them. But here's the part they never saw coming. The same daughter they threw away was hired by someone far more powerful than they could ever imagine. And when they found out who I became, everything changed. Too late. And that's where my story really begins. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 32 years old, born and raised in Seattle. On paper, I had everything together: a solid career in marketing, a steady income, a reputation for being reliable, strong, the one everyone could count on. Especially my family. I was the one who paid the bills when things got tight. The one who stayed late at work so we wouldn't fall behind. The one who fixed problems no one else wanted to deal with. They called me responsible, but what they really meant was useful. I thought love looked like sacrifice. I thought loyalty meant giving more, asking less. I thought if I kept showing up, they would too. I was wrong. Because the moment I stopped providing, the moment I had nothing left to give, I stopped mattering. Not slowly, not gently, instantly. To them, I wasn't a daughter, not a sister. I was a paycheck. And when that paycheck disappeared, so did my place in that family. But here's what they never understood. They didn't just throw out their daughter. They threw out the only person who was about to become more powerful than all of them combined. They just didn't know it yet. Every morning, my life ran on precision. Coffee at 7:10. Emails by 7:30. Meetings stacked back to back before most people even settled into their desks. I was a marketing manager at a fast-growing tech company, and I was good at it. No, I was great at it. Deadlines didn't scare me. Pressure didn't break me. I thrived in it. Campaigns I led brought in record numbers. Clients trusted me. My boss relied on me. Promotions came faster than I expected, but never faster than I earned. From the outside, it looked like success. Clean. Linear. Predictable. But success has a cost. Late nights turned into normal nights. Weekends became optional. My phone never really turned off. And slowly, quietly, exhaustion crept in. I told myself it was worth it. Because every paycheck meant stability. Every bonus meant security. Not just for me, but for my family. That was the deal I made with myself. Work harder. Give more. Don't complain. And I didn't. Even when the pressure doubled. Even when expectations kept rising. Even when I started feeling like I was running on empty. I kept going. Because stopping wasn't an option. Not for someone like me. And that's the part no one saw. Behind every successful version of me was someone one step away from burning out. But I ignored it. Because as long as I was succeeding, everything else felt manageable. Until the day it wasn't. And that success didn't just stay at the office, it followed me home. Because in my family, I wasn't just Emily. I was the provider. Every bill that showed up on the kitchen counter somehow became my responsibility. Rent. Electricity. Groceries. Unexpected expenses. If something needed to be paid, I paid it. At first, it felt good. Useful. Needed. Important. My mom would say, "I don't know what we'd do without you." My sister would hug me when I helped her. Even Jason, who barely worked, would nod like I was doing what I was supposed to do. And maybe I was. So I kept giving. A little more money here. A little more time there. Covering gaps. Fixing problems. Quietly holding everything together. No complaints. No conditions. Because that's what family does, right? But over time, something shifted. The thank yous became expectations. The appreciation turned into silence. And the silence became entitlement. Now it wasn't, "Can you help?" It was, "You'll handle it." No one asked if I was tired. No one noticed how much I was carrying. They just assumed I would keep doing it. And I did. Because stopping meant disappointing them. And disappointing them felt worse than exhausting myself. But here's the truth I didn't want to face. I wasn't supporting a family. I was sustaining a system that only worked as long as I kept sacrificing. And the moment I couldn't anymore, everything would collapse. Just not in the way I expected. And if you think I'm exaggerating, you need to understand who my family really was. My mom, Linda Carter, cared about one thing above everything else: how things looked. Not how they felt. Not how we struggled. Just appearances. To neighbors, to relatives, to anyone watching from the outside, we had to seem fine. And I made that possible. Then there was my brother, Jason. Older than me, but somehow always behind. Jobs came and went for him. Mostly went. He had opinions about everything, especially my life, but responsibility? That was never his lane. Still, he acted like he was above me. Like my success was luck. Temporary. Replaceable. And my younger sister, Olivia, she was different. Softer. Dependent. She leaned on me for everything: money, advice, emotional support. At first, I didn't mind. It made me feel needed. But being needed can turn into being used, quietly, gradually. No one in that house ever said, "This is too much for you." Instead, they said nothing. And that silence said everything. Because the more I gave, the more they took. The more I showed up, the less they noticed. The more I held things together, the less they respected what it cost me. But here's the part that took me the longest to realize: this wasn't chaos. It was structure. A system where my role was fixed. Provider. Problem solver. Safety net. And everyone else? Comfortable. Too comfortable. Because as long as I stayed strong, they never had to be. And I let that happen. I told myself it was love. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself things would change. They didn't. They just got worse. And the most dangerous part? I didn't even see it coming until the day everything broke. And then, it happened on a completely ordinary Tuesday. Nothing felt different that morning. Same routine. Same coffee. Same inbox already filling up before I even sat down. I remember thinking, just get through today. Another meeting. Another deadline. Another normal day. Until it wasn't. At 10:17 a.m., a calendar invite popped up. Urgent, department meeting. No context. No explanation. That was the first sign. People gathered quickly. Too quickly. Faces tight. Voices low. No one making eye contact for too long. You could feel it, something was off. Still, I told myself it was nothing. Companies restructure all the time, right? Then HR walked in. And everything shifted. The room went quiet in a way that didn't feel temporary. It felt final. Words were said. Carefully chosen. Cold. Corporate. Restructuring. Budget alignment. Difficult decisions. And then my name. Just like that. No warning. No performance issues. No second chance. Gone. I sat there, waiting for it to make sense. Waiting for someone to say there had been a mistake. No one did. Instead, they handed me a folder. A script. A timeline for how fast my life was about to change. 30 minutes later, I was packing my desk. 45 minutes later, my access was gone. 1 hour later, I was outside, holding a box of things that suddenly felt meaningless. And here's the part that hit the hardest: it didn't feel real. Not yet. Because I thought the worst part was losing my job. I had no idea. That was just the beginning. I sat in my car for a long time, longer than I want to admit. The engine was off. The world outside kept moving. People walking. Cars passing. Life continuing. But mine? It felt like it had just stopped. I kept replaying the meeting in my head. Every word. Every pause. Trying to find the moment where it went wrong. There had to be one, right? Maybe I missed a sign. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe they saw something in me that I didn't. That thought hit harder than anything else. Not anger. Not fear. Doubt. Slow. Quiet. Dangerous. Because once it starts, it doesn't stop. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back. Same face. Same clothes. But something was different. Smaller. Weaker. For the first time in years. I didn't know what came next. And that terrified me. So I did what I always do. I tried to stay in control. I made a plan. Update my resume. Reach out to contacts. Start applying immediately. Fix it. Move fast. Don't fall behind. Because if I kept moving, maybe I wouldn't feel it. But feelings don't disappear just because you ignore them. They build. Quietly. Until they don't stay quiet anymore. And then it hit me, this wasn't just a bad day. This wasn't just a setback. This was something bigger. Something that could change everything. And, for the first time, I wasn't sure I could handle it. The drive home felt longer than it ever had before. Same roads. Same turns. Same traffic lights. But nothing felt familiar anymore. Every second, one thought kept getting louder: how am I going to tell them? I gripped the steering wheel tighter than I needed to. My mind running scenarios. Rehearsing conversations that didn't sound real. Hey, I lost my job. No. Too direct. It's just temporary. No. That sounded like a lie. Nothing felt right. Because deep down, I already knew how this would go. Still, a small part of me held on to hope. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe they'd understand. Maybe they'd ask if I was okay. Maybe they'd be my family. I pulled into the driveway and just sat there for a moment. Breathing. Preparing. Delaying. Because once I walked inside, everything would change. And then I opened the door. The house looked the same. The smell of dinner. The sound of the TV. Normal. Too normal. It almost made me believe things might be okay. "Emily, you're late," my mom called out. Same tone. Same expectation. That's when it hit me, they had no idea. And I was about to ruin everything. I stepped inside, forcing a smile that didn't belong on my face. Trying to act normal. Trying to hold it together. But underneath, everything was already falling apart. And the worst part? I wasn't walking into comfort. I was walking into judgment. I just hadn't heard it yet. I didn't say it right away. I sat down, forced myself to breathe, tried to act like nothing had changed, like I wasn't carrying something heavy enough to break me. But it didn't take long. My mom noticed first. "You look off," she said, barely glancing at me. Not concern, just observation. That was my cue. "I lost my job today." Silence. Not the kind that comforts you. The kind that exposes you. Jason let out a short laugh. "Wait, seriously?" I nodded. Still hoping for something. Anything. Support. A question. A pause. Instead, my mom put her fork down. Slowly. "How does that even happen?" Not "Are you okay?" Not "What are you going to do?" Just that. I tried to explain. Restructuring. Budget cuts. Nothing I could control. But the more I spoke, the less they listened. Jason leaned back, arms crossed. So basically, they didn't need you. That one landed hard. Olivia didn't say anything. She just looked at me like I had suddenly become a problem she didn't want to deal with. And that's when I felt it shift. The energy in the room. From neutral to cold. From family to distance. I mean, you always act like you have everything figured out, Jason continued. Guess not. I opened my mouth. Closed it again. Because nothing I said mattered anymore. In that moment, I wasn't Emily. I was a mistake. A failure sitting at their table. And then my mom said the thing that changed everything: you need to figure this out. Quickly. Not we. Not together. You. That's when it hit me, this wasn't a conversation. This was judgment. And it had already been decided. I didn't plan to say it that night. I told myself I'd wait. Pick the right moment. Soften the impact. But moments like that don't exist. You're quiet, my mom said, not looking up. Something wrong. There it was. A door opening or closing. I got laid off today. The words landed. Flat. Heavy. Silence followed. Too long. Too still. Then Jason smirked. Seriously? You? A short laugh. Sharp. Dismissive. I felt something tighten in my chest. I didn't do anything wrong, I said quickly. They're cutting positions, my mom interrupted, her voice calm but cold. People don't just lose jobs for no reason. That stung. I tried again. Explain the restructuring. The budget cuts. The sudden decision. But every word felt like it was falling into a void. No one leaned in. No one asked more. Jason shrugged. Sounds like they didn't see your value. That one hit deeper. Because for a second, I believed him. Olivia shifted in her seat, avoiding my eyes. Not cruel. Not kind. Just distant. And that distance said everything. The room felt different now. Heavier. Colder. Smaller. I mean, Jason continued, you always acted like you had everything under control. I swallowed hard. I did, I said quietly. Clearly not, he shot back. And, just like that, whatever I was before this moment, disappeared. My mom set her fork down, finally looking at me. You need to fix this. Fast. No softness. No concern. Just pressure. Just expectation. Not, we'll figure it out. Not, we're here for you. Just you. That was the twist. Not the job. Not the loss. This. The realization that I wasn't sitting with family anymore. I was sitting in front of judges. And in their eyes, I had already failed. At first, I thought that was the worst of it. I was wrong. Because the next morning, it started. Not with concern. Not with support. With numbers. Bills stacked neatly on the kitchen counter. My name already written on half of them. Rent due in 5 days. Electricity overdue. Groceries running low. Nothing new. Except this time, everything felt different. My mom slid the papers toward me. We need to talk about this. Not you. This. I swallowed. I just told you I lost my job. I heard you, she said quickly. But these still need to be paid. Of course they did. That was the unspoken rule. No matter what happened to me, the money had to keep coming. Jason leaned against the wall, arms crossed. So what's your plan? Plan. Like I had one overnight. I'm applying, I said. I'll figure it out. That's not good enough, he replied instantly. Not good enough. The words hit harder this time. Because now, it wasn't about me anymore. It was about what I could no longer provide. Olivia finally spoke, quiet but sharp. If you can't cover your part, everything falls on us. Us. But we all knew what that really meant. No one else was going to step up. They just expected me to keep doing it. Even now. Even like this. And that's when it became clear I wasn't being supported through a crisis. I was being evaluated inside one. Every second I didn't fix it, every dollar I couldn't produce. I was losing value. Fast. And the scariest part? No one tried to hide it anymore. Not even a little. At first, I tried to stay calm. I told myself it was just stress. Just pressure. That things would settle down once I found a new job. But they didn't. They escalated. Every conversation turned into a confrontation. Every small comment carried weight. Every silence felt loaded. It started with questions. Did you hear back from anyone? How many jobs did you apply to today? Reasonable, at first. Until they weren't. Because the tone changed. Sharp. Impatient. Accusing. Like I wasn't trying hard enough. I'm doing everything I can, I said one night, my voice tighter than I expected. Jason scoffed. Doesn't look like it. That did it. Excuse me? I snapped. There it was, the crack. The moment things stopped being controlled. You heard me, he said, stepping closer. You had one job, keep things stable. And you couldn't even do that. One job. Like I was a machine. Like I wasn't already breaking. I lost my job, Jason, not my ability to try. I shot back. My mom cut in, louder now. Stop raising your voice like you're the victim here. Victim. That word hit different. Because suddenly, I wasn't someone struggling. I was someone causing problems. And that changed everything. I'm the reason this house even runs. I said, louder than I meant to. Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. Wrong move. Because in that moment, I didn't sound hurt. I sounded defiant. Ungrateful. Jason shook his head. See? This is the real you. The real me? No. This was the first time I stopped holding everything in. But to them, that was already too much. And just like that, the argument wasn't about money anymore. It was about control. And I was losing it. The argument didn't end. It shifted. From loud to something colder. Sharper. More final. No one was yelling anymore. And somehow, that was worse. My mom stood up first. Slow. Controlled. Like she had already made a decision before I even spoke. I'm not going to tolerate this attitude in my house. My house. Not our house. That word landed differently. I didn't do anything wrong, I said, quieter now. Not weaker, just tired. Jason let out a breath, shaking his head. You don't get it, do you? Get what? That you're a liability now. Liability. The word echoed. Not daughter. Not family. A problem. I just need time, I said. That's it. But time was the one thing they weren't willing to give. My mom crossed her arms. We don't have time. But it didn't include me. Then came the moment. The one that changed everything. If you can't contribute, you can't stay here. Silence. Not confusion. Not disbelief. Just impact. Because part of me had already seen it coming. You're serious? I asked. I am. No hesitation. No emotion. Just a line drawn. And suddenly, everything felt smaller. The room. The house. Them. I looked around, waiting, hoping someone would stop this. Jason didn't move. Olivia looked away. No one said a word. That was the answer. So I stood up. Slowly. Carefully. Like if I moved too fast, something inside me would break. I'll pack, I said. And that was it. No fight. No begging. Just acceptance. Because the truth hit all at once, I wasn't being pushed out. I had already been replaced. The door slammed behind me 20 minutes later. Not loud, but loud enough. And just like that, I wasn't part of that family anymore. The first night didn't feel real. I kept telling myself it was temporary. Just a few days. Maybe a week. I'd figure something out. I had to. The motel room smelled like old carpet and cheap air freshener. The kind that tries too hard to hide something worse. The bed was stiff. The walls were thin. Every sound, footsteps, doors, voices, bled through like there was no barrier at all. Nothing about it felt safe. Nothing felt like mine. I placed my suitcase in the corner and just stood there, staring. Not unpacking. Not sitting. Because sitting meant accepting it. And I wasn't ready for that. So I kept moving. Checking my phone. Refreshing emails. Scrolling job listings. Over and over again. Like if I stopped, reality would catch up. But it already had. The next morning, I counted my money. Carefully. Too carefully. Every dollar suddenly had weight. Every decision mattered. Coffee? No. Takeout? Impossible. Even staying another night felt like a risk. And that's when it shifted from inconvenience to survival. I started calculating everything. Days I could afford. Meals I could skip. How long before I ran out completely? Because I would. That part was inevitable. And the scariest thing? There was no backup plan anymore. No safety net. No one to call. No one waiting. Just me. Alone in a room that didn't belong to me. Trying to hold on to a life that was already slipping away. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't a phase. This was the bottom. And I had no idea how far down it could go. The next day, I started applying. Not casually. Not selectively. Desperately. I woke up early, laptop open before I even fully processed where I was. Job boards, company websites, LinkedIn, anything that had an apply button, I clicked it. 1 application. Then 5. Then 10. It felt productive. At first. Because movement feels like progress, even when it isn't. I rewrote my resume 3 times in one day. Adjusted keywords. Changed formats. Tried to sound stronger, sharper, more valuable. More employable. Because clearly, what I was before wasn't enough. Then came the waiting. Hours. Then days. Refreshing my inbox became a routine. Every notification made my heart jump, only to drop seconds later. Spam. Promotions. Silence. No interviews. No callbacks. Nothing. I told myself it was normal. Hiring takes time. Companies move slow. But time was the one thing I didn't have. So I pushed harder. More applications. Late into the night. Early in the morning. Skipping meals. Skipping sleep. Just trying. Because stopping meant thinking. And thinking meant spiraling. Then the rejection started. Short emails. Cold. Automated. Thank you for your interest. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. Copy. Paste. Repeat. Each one small. But they added up. Fast. And with every rejection, something shifted. Not outside. Inside. Maybe my experience wasn't that strong. Maybe my achievements didn't matter. Maybe they were right. That word again. Not good enough. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just a job search anymore. It was a countdown. Money running out. Time running out. Options disappearing. And no matter how hard I tried, nothing was working. That was the moment it became real. I wasn't just struggling. I was losing. At some point, it stopped being about the job. It became about me. Not what I could do. Not what I had achieved. But who I was without all of it. I started waking up with a weight on my chest. Not physical, but heavy enough to keep me still. Minutes passed. Then hours. And somehow, doing nothing felt easier than trying again. That scared me. Because I had never been that person. I used to move. Act. Fix things. Now, I just sat there. Staring at the same screen. The same empty inbox. The same version of myself I didn't recognize anymore. And the thoughts got louder. Not all at once. Slowly. Quietly. Maybe you're not as good as you thought. Maybe they were right to let you go. Maybe your family saw it before you did. That last one stayed. It lingered. Because it sounded like truth. I tried to fight it. Remind myself of everything I'd done. Everything I'd built. But the more I tried, the weaker it sounded. Like I was convincing myself of something that wasn't real. And that's when it shifted again from doubt to belief. Not good enough. The words didn't hurt anymore. They settled. Like something familiar. Like something that had always been there, just waiting for a moment like this to surface. And that was the most dangerous part. Because once you start believing it, you stop trying to prove it wrong. You just accept it. And in that moment, sitting alone in that room, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't just losing opportunities. I was losing myself. And then, something small happened. So small, I almost ignored it. It was just another notification. A single email. No sound. No urgency. Just a quiet ping on my phone while I was lying there, staring at nothing. I almost didn't check it. Because by then, emails only meant one thing. Rejection. Still, out of habit, I opened it. Expecting the same words. The same script. The same ending. But this one felt different. No generic greeting. No automated tone. Just my name. Emily Carter. That alone made me pause. I sat up slowly, reading more carefully now. We've been reviewing your work. My work? That didn't make sense. I hadn't sent anything recently that stood out. Or so I thought. The message continued. We'd like to invite you to a formal interview. The word didn't register at first. Because it had been too long. Too many rejections. Too much silence. My brain didn't trust it. I read it again. Then again. Still there. Real. But here's where it shifted: the company name. Harrison Global Group. Not small. Not random. Massive. The kind of company that doesn't notice people like me. Or at least, that's what I believed. And suddenly, everything inside me changed. Not fully. Not yet. But enough. Because for the first time in weeks, something wasn't ending. Something was starting. And I had no idea how big this was about to become. I almost didn't go. That's the truth. Because hope, after enough disappointment, starts to feel dangerous. But something in me, small, stubborn, refused to let this pass. So I showed up. The building alone was intimidating. Glass. Steel. Polished to perfection. The kind of place where people walked fast and spoke with certainty. I didn't feel like I belonged there. Not anymore. I checked in. Sat down. Hands clasped tighter than I realized. Watching people pass by like they had everything figured out. Unlike me. Emily Carter? I looked up. That was my cue. The room was quiet. Minimal. Controlled. And at the center of it, him. Daniel Harrison. I recognized the name instantly. CEO. The kind of person you read about, not meet. And suddenly, the stakes felt higher. Way higher. Thank you for coming, he said. Calm. Direct. I nodded, trying to steady myself. Answering questions. Explaining my experience. My projects. My decisions. At first, it felt like any other interview. Structured. Predictable. Until it wasn't. Because he wasn't just listening. He was watching. Carefully. Like he already knew something I didn't. You handled the Northbridge campaign, he said. I froze. That project wasn't even on my resume. How do you? We've been following your work for a while. That changed everything. Not applying. Not chasing. Being watched. Chosen. Suddenly, this wasn't me trying to prove my worth. This was them confirming it. And the energy shifted. Completely. I sat straighter. Spoke clearer. Not performing anymore, just being. For the first time in weeks. I wasn't trying to survive. I was being seen. And that's when I realized this wasn't just an opportunity. This was a turning point. And I was already standing inside it. I didn't respond right away, because my brain was still trying to catch up. They had been watching me? That didn't make sense. Not after everything that had just happened. Not after I had been rejected over and over again like I didn't matter. So I asked quietly, "What do you mean?" Daniel didn't rush his answer. "We track emerging talent," he said. "People who perform under pressure. People who deliver results, even when no one is paying attention. People like me?" That thought didn't feel real. He slid a folder across the table. My name was on it. Inside, reports, summaries, campaign breakdowns. My work. Detailed. Analyzed. Understood. More than my own company had ever done. "You led 3 campaigns that outperformed projections by over 40%, he continued. "You stabilized a failing project in under 2 months. And you did it without additional resources." I stared at the pages. Because no one had ever said it like that before. No one had ever seen it like that before. Not my boss. Not my family. No one. And that's when it shifted. Everything I thought I had lost was suddenly being reframed as value. Not weakness. Not failure. Value. But then came the real twist. "We were planning to reach out next quarter," Daniel said calmly. "But when we heard about your situation," he paused. "We moved faster." My situation. They knew. Not just my work. My fall. And instead of seeing risk, they saw opportunity. That's when it hit me. I wasn't here because I was lucky. I was here because I was undeniable. And for the first time in weeks, I believed it. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until he spoke again. "Emily," Daniel said, calm, direct. "We'd like to offer you the position." Just like that. No build-up. No hesitation. The words landed, but they didn't register. "Offer." I repeated, slower this time. He nodded. "Chief Operations Lead for our new expansion division." My mind froze. That wasn't just a job. That was power. Responsibility. Authority. A level I hadn't even been aiming for. "Not anymore." "Effective immediately," he added. Immediately. No waiting. No second round. No doubt. And suddenly, everything inside me shifted again. From disbelief to pressure. Because this wasn't survival anymore. This was expectation. "Are you sure?" I asked before I could stop myself. Not because I didn't want it. Because I needed to understand it. Daniel leaned forward slightly. "We don't make offers like this unless we are certain." Certain. About me. That word hit differently than anything else. After weeks of rejection, of being told, directly or indirectly, that I wasn't enough, here was someone saying the opposite. Without hesitation. Without conditions. I looked down at the offer in front of me. Numbers I hadn't seen before. Terms I hadn't imagined. A future I didn't think I had anymore. And then I said it. Yes. Simple. Clear. Final. But here's the twist. I didn't feel relief. Not yet. What I felt was something stronger. A shift. Because in that moment, I wasn't trying to rebuild my life anymore. I was stepping into a completely different one. The first week felt unreal. Not in a good way. Not yet. Everything moved faster than I expected. Meetings I didn't prepare for. Decisions I was suddenly responsible for. People looking at me, not as a colleague, but as someone in charge. And that shift? It was immediate. No transition. No easing in. Just pressure. "Emily, we need your call on this." "Emily, what's your strategy here?" "Emily, timeline?" My name kept coming up. Again. 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 And every time I felt it. The weight. Because this wasn't like before. There was no one above me to double-check. No safety net. No room to hesitate. Every answer mattered. So I adapted. fast. I stayed late. Earlier than everyone, later than everyone. I studied reports, learned systems, mapped people, understood dynamics. Because if I slowed down, I'd fall behind. And falling behind wasn't an option anymore. Not here. Not after everything. But adapting came with a cost. Sleep became shorter. Thoughts became louder. Every mistake, no matter how small, felt amplified. Because now, it wasn't just about doing well. It was about proving I belonged. And that pressure? It didn't fade. It sharpened. Until something shifted. Not outside. Inside. Because one morning, in the middle of another high-stakes meeting, I didn't hesitate. I answered. Decisively. Clearly. Without second-guessing. And no one questioned it. That was the moment. The turning point. Because I realized I wasn't trying to catch up anymore. I was keeping up. And more than that, I was starting to lead. For real. At first, the progress was subtle. Small wins. Quiet approvals. Nothing dramatic. But I noticed it. A project I restructured started recovering faster than expected. A delayed timeline tightened. A team that was struggling began delivering. Not perfectly, but consistently. And consistency? That's where real change begins. Good call, someone said after a meeting. Just 2 words. But they stayed. Because before, no one said things like that to me at this level. Then it happened again. And again. Feedback shifted. Tone changed. People didn't just listen, they waited for my input. That was new. And powerful. But with that came more. More responsibility. Bigger decisions. Higher stakes. The kind where one mistake could cost more than just reputation. And I felt that pressure. Every day. Because success at this level isn't loud. It's precise. Measured. Unforgiving. So I pushed harder. Sharper thinking. Faster decisions. Less hesitation. Because hesitation gets noticed. And I couldn't afford that. Then came the first real test. A major project. High visibility. Tight deadline. All eyes on me. And for a moment, the old doubt came back. What if they made a mistake hiring me? But this time, I didn't freeze. I acted. Clear direction. Fast execution. No second guessing. And it worked. Better than expected. The numbers came in strong. The team delivered. The outcome, solid. Undeniable. And that's when it shifted again. This wasn't potential anymore. This was proof. Not just to them. To me. Because for the first time, I didn't feel like I was trying to prove I belonged. I knew I did. And that changed everything. At first, the changes were practical. A better apartment. Closer to the office. Clean. Quiet. Mine. No more motel smells. No more counting every dollar before making a decision. No more wondering how many days I had left. That alone felt like freedom. But it didn't stop there. My routine changed. My pace changed. Even the way I carried myself changed. I woke up with purpose again. Not survival, direction. Meetings. Strategy. Execution. Results. Everything had structure. Everything had meaning. And for the first time in a long time, I felt in control. But control comes with a different kind of pressure. Because now, there was something to lose again. Reputation. Position. Stability. Things I had just rebuilt. So I stayed sharp. More focused. More disciplined. More aware. Because I knew how quickly everything could disappear. I had lived it. And that memory? It didn't fade. It stayed. Quiet but present. A reminder. Then something else shifted. Not outside. Inside. Because one night, standing in my new apartment, looking out over the city, I realized something strange. I wasn't thinking about them anymore. Not the arguments. Not the door. Not the silence. Nothing. And that absence? It was louder than anything before. Because for so long, they had been the center of everything I did. Every decision. Every sacrifice. But now, they were nowhere in it. And that was the real change. Not the apartment. Not the job. Me. Because I wasn't rebuilding the same life. I had already left it behind. It happened quietly. No call. No warning. Just a screen. Somewhere on a random afternoon, Jason was scrolling. Bored. Distracted. Looking for nothing in particular. And then, he saw it. My name. At first, it didn't register. Emily Carter. Common enough. Easy to ignore. But something made him stop. Maybe the company name. Maybe the title. Maybe instinct. So he clicked. And that's when everything changed. My profile loaded. Clean. Updated. Professional. Not the version they remembered. Not the one they threw out. A new one. Position. Chief Operations Lead, Harrison Global Group. He stared at it. Read it again. Then again. Because it didn't make sense. Not after everything. Not after what they said. Not after what they believed. And yet, there it was. Real. Public. Unavoidable. The same name. The same person. Different reality. He checked the details. The timeline. The company page. All consistent. All undeniable. And that's when the shock hit, not just that I had a job, but where and who I had become. Because this wasn't survival. This was success. At a level none of them expected. None of them imagined. And in that moment, the story they told themselves about me collapsed. Completely. At first, Jason didn't say anything. He just stared at the screen, like if he looked long enough, it would change. It didn't. So he did the only thing he could do. He showed them. Mom, you need to see this. Linda barely looked up at first. What is it now? Annoyed. Dismissive. Uninterested. Until she saw the name. My name. Then the title. Then the company. And everything stopped. What is this? She asked slower now. Not confused. Disturbed. Olivia leaned in next, curious at first, then silent. Too silent. Because now they were all seeing it. The same thing. The same proof. And none of it matched the version of me they had created in their heads. This can't be right, Jason said quickly. It has to be someone else. But it wasn't. They checked again. Profile. Photos. History. Every detail lined up. Every doubt erased. And that's when it hit them, not gradually. All at once. I wasn't struggling. I wasn't failing. I wasn't who they thought I was anymore. And that realization? It didn't bring pride. It brought something else. Discomfort. Because now, they had to face it. They weren't wrong about my situation. They were wrong about me. And that difference? It changed everything. In the room, no one spoke for a moment. Because there was nothing left to say. Only one thing left to feel: shock. Real. Heavy. Unavoidable. The call came 2 days later. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Because lately, unexpected calls usually meant problems. But something made me pause. So I picked up. Emily, it's Mom. That voice. Familiar. But different. Softer. Careful. Like every word was being chosen. I didn't respond right away. Because I was trying to understand what I was hearing. Not the voice I remembered. Not the tone I grew up with. This one needed something. We've been trying to reach you, she continued. We just want to talk. Talk. Such a simple word. But it carried weight. Because the last time we talked, I was walking out the door. With nothing. I leaned back, silent for a moment. Letting the space stretch. Because now, I had the control. Not them. What is it? I asked. Neutral. Distant. Not cold. Just no longer available. There was a pause on the other end. Then, we'd like to see you. Like. Not need. Not sorry. Like. And that choice of words? It said everything. I almost laughed. Because suddenly, everything felt clear. This wasn't about me. Not really. This was about what they had just discovered. What I had become. And what they might get from it. Still, I said, when? Because part of me needed to see it. To confirm it. To understand just how much had changed. Tomorrow, she said quickly. Dinner. Too quick. Too eager. And that was the moment I knew this wasn't a reunion. It was a reaction. And I was about to walk back into it. On very different terms. I arrived exactly on time. Not early. Not late. Controlled. The house looked the same. Same walls. Same lights. Same door I had walked out of. But it didn't feel the same. Not anymore. I paused for a second before knocking. Not out of hesitation. Out of awareness. Because this time, I wasn't walking in as the same person. The door opened quickly. Too quickly. My mom stood there, already smiling. That alone felt off. Emily, you look good, she said. Soft. Careful. Measured. I stepped inside. And the air changed instantly. Not tense. Not loud. Just unnatural. Jason was already at the table. Sitting straighter than usual. Olivia avoided eye contact for a second too long. Everyone noticed me. No one knew how to act. That silence? It stretched. Long enough to say everything. Sit, my mom said, gesturing toward the chair. My chair. The same one. But it didn't feel like mine anymore. I sat down slowly. Observing. Listening. Because now, I could see it clearly. The way they looked at me. Not dismissive. Not critical. Careful. Almost respectful. And that shift? It was louder than any argument we ever had. How have you been? My mom asked. Too polite. Too neutral. Like we were strangers. I answered simply. Busy. Nothing more. Because I wasn't here to fill the silence. I was here to understand it. And that's when it hit me, this wasn't uncomfortable because of the past. It was uncomfortable because of the present. Because now, they didn't know where they stood with me anymore. It didn't take long for it to start. Not directly. Not honestly. Subtly. We've missed you, my mom said, placing food on the table like nothing had ever happened. Missed me. The word lingered. Because it didn't match the memory I had. Jason nodded, avoiding my eyes. Yeah, things haven't been the same. Not the same? I almost asked what part. The silence? The missing paycheck? Or me? Olivia finally spoke, softer than usual. We were worried about you. Worried. That one almost made me laugh. Because worry doesn't look like a slammed door. It doesn't sound like you're a liability. But I didn't say that. I just listened. Because now the pattern was clear. Every word was careful. Polished. Rewritten. Like they were editing the past in real time. We didn't mean what we said, my mom added quickly. It was just stress. Stress. A convenient explanation. A clean excuse. One word to erase everything. But it didn't. It couldn't. Jason leaned forward slightly. You know how things get. We're still family. Family. There it was. The strongest word they had. And the weakest one they could use. Because now, it sounded different. Not like connection. Like leverage. And that's when it hit me, this wasn't an apology. There was no accountability. No acknowledgement. Just soft language, covering hard truths. They weren't trying to fix what they broke. They were trying to make it seem like it never happened. And that was worse. Because at least the truth had been honest. This was calculated. And I could see every piece of it. I let them finish. Every word. Every excuse. Every carefully softened version of what they had done. And then, I spoke. Not loudly. Not emotionally. Just clearly. That's not what happened. Silence. Immediate. Heavy. Because they weren't expecting resistance. Not from me. Not anymore. My mom blinked, caught off guard. Emily, we're just trying to. No, I cut in. Calm. Controlled. You're trying to rewrite it. That landed. I could see it. The shift in their faces. The discomfort. The tension rising again, but different this time. Because now, I wasn't reacting. I was confronting. You didn't miss me, I continued. You didn't worry. You told me I was a liability. No one interrupted. No one corrected me. Because they couldn't. You told me if I couldn't contribute, I didn't belong here. My voice didn't shake. That was new. That was power. Jason shifted in his seat. We didn't mean it like that, but you said it, I replied instantly. Short. Direct. Unavoidable. And that's when it hit them. I wasn't here to reconnect. I was here to set the record straight. My mom's tone changed again, softer, almost pleading. We were under pressure, and so was I said. That stopped everything. Because for the first time, they had to face it. Not their version. Mine. I lost my job, I continued. And instead of asking if I was okay, you asked how fast I could fix it. No anger. Just truth. And truth doesn't need volume. It needs clarity. And when I couldn't, I paused. Let it sit. You threw me out. No one moved. No one spoke. Because there was nothing left to deny. And in that moment, the balance shifted completely. Not in their favor. Not anymore. The silence didn't last long. Because reality was about to catch up. Jason cleared his throat first. There's something else we should talk about. Of course there was. I didn't respond. I just waited. Because now, I knew how this worked. He leaned forward slightly, more careful now. Our company, we're working on a deal. A big one. I already knew where this was going. And it turns out, he hesitated, choosing his words, your company is involved. There it was. Not apology. Not regret. Business. I nodded slowly. I'm aware. That answer alone shifted everything. Because now, they understood. I wasn't just doing well. I was in control. My mom jumped in quickly. Emily, this could be good for everyone. We can help each other. Help. The word almost sounded generous. But it wasn't. It was strategic. Calculated. And late. Jason added, you'd be overseeing the decision, right? Not a question. A confirmation. I held his gaze. Yes. No hesitation. No softness. And that's when the tension peaked. Because now, everything depended on what I said next. I won't be involved in your deal. Direct. Clean. Final. What? Jason's voice rose. My mom's face tightened. Emily, don't be unreasonable. I am being professional, I cut in. Calm. Controlled. Unshakable. This is exactly why I can't be involved. Silence again. But different this time. Heavier. Because now, they understood the cost. Not emotional. Practical. Real. And here was the twist, this wasn't revenge. I wasn't taking something from them. I was simply refusing to give them access to something they thought they still had me. And just like that, the power dynamic was no longer hidden. It was clear. And it was mine. I didn't stay much longer after that. There was nothing left to fix. Nothing left to explain. Because the truth had already done its job. I walked out the same door they once pushed me through, but this time, it felt different. Not heavy. Not painful. Clear. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped needing them to understand me. And that changed everything. For so long, I thought family meant unconditional support. That no matter what happened, they would stand by you. But that wasn't true. Not always. Sometimes, family is where you're valued, only when you're useful. And the moment you're not, you become replaceable. That realization hurt. But it also freed me. Because once you stop chasing validation from people who only measure your worth in what you provide, you start seeing yourself differently. Stronger. Clearer. Enough. And here's the part no one tells you. Losing everything doesn't always break you. Sometimes, it shows you exactly who was never really there to begin with. And once you see that, you don't go back. You move forward. Without them. For a long time, I thought losing my job was the moment everything fell apart. I thought that was the breaking point. The failure. The end. But I see it differently now. Because the job wasn't what defined me. And losing it wasn't what destroyed me. What nearly did was believing I had no value without it. That I was only as important as what I could give. That I needed to earn my place, even in my own family. That belief? That was the real loss. And letting go of it was the real turning point. Because the moment I stopped proving myself to people who never intended to see me, I started becoming someone they couldn't ignore. Not louder. Not harder. Just undeniable. And here's the truth that changed everything. Sometimes, the worst moment of your life is actually the moment your life finally becomes yours. Not controlled. Not dependent. Not defined by anyone else. And once you reach that point, you don't ask for a place anymore. You choose where you belong. And this time, I chose myself. If this story hit you, even a little, then you already understand. Not every betrayal is loud. Not every lesson is easy. But every moment like this, it changes you. Maybe you've been there, misunderstood, underestimated, pushed aside when you needed support the most. Or maybe you're still there. And if you are, hear this, your lowest point? It's not your final version. Not even close. So don't let anyone decide your value based on what you're going through right now. Because one day, things will shift. And when they do, they won't recognize you anymore. If this story meant something to you, drop a comment. Share your experience. And subscribe, because the next story might be even closer to yours than you think.